Since the start of the show, Rick Sanchez has been one of Rick and Morty's greatest characters, but the debut of Season 8 revealed a painful fact about his journey. Rick Sanchez has been the most notable character in the cartoon series, second only to Morty, and he has helped create many of its most memorable scenes. He has contributed significantly to some of Rick and Morty's greatest episodes, but the plot would not be the same without him, because Rick is the impetus behind the majority of the adventures, underscoring his importance in helping to make the show one of Adult Swim's most successful endeavors. But Rick's imperfections are one of the things that make him so funny. He is the most morally dubious of all the main characters, and his selfishness leads to countless issues. He does, however, possess a number of redeemable traits that keep the viewer interested in the character, which is crucial to his relatability. Rick has stayed true to himself while going through a lot of growth, even as he and Morty have evolved over the seasons. However, his stubbornness also brings to light one of the protagonist's toughest truths, and Summer of All Fears once again reveals this significant fault. Summer of All Fears proves Rick will never overcome his worst traits. Rick does have some charming attributes, but Summer of All Fears only proved that his worst traits will always be there. Rick is still incredibly petty, as evidenced by his punishment in the Season 8 premiere, despite the innumerable amazing adventures he has had with his family and the near-death experiences he has survived. Rick went too far by forcing Morty and Summer to go through a lengthy simulation, rather than reprimanding his grandchildren or having a more substantive discussion about how annoying it is that they constantly take his phone charger. To teach Morty and Summer a lesson, he made them enter a virtual world that taught them the importance of not stealing phone chargers. It could have been a severe but appropriate punishment if the teens had only been in the virtual world for a day or two, but Rick unintentionally kept them there for the equivalent of 17 years, which seriously damaged their mental health. As a high school student, it was very challenging to reintegrate into society, even though Summer went on to become a tech CEO inside the Matrix. Similarly, Morty's PTSD from fighting in conflicts and repeatedly dying inside the simulation only made Rick and Morty's already complex relationship worse. The fact that Rick still exhibits some very awful characteristics that he hasn't overcome after 8 seasons is demonstrated by the extent to which he ruined his grandchildren's lives because they inconvenienced him. Because of this, it appears that Rick Sanchez will always have these imperfections, highlighting how complex and contentious he is. Rick still loves Morty and Summer. Despite his extreme lessons, no one can dispute Rick's affection for Morty and Summer, despite the fact that he has unquestionably been nasty and frequently careless toward his grandchildren. He may be a little cynical in his tough lectures, but he has also placed himself in danger for his family and endangered his life many times. Fans may remember Rick mostly for his cruel remarks and cruel pranks, but he has also shown the Smith family, especially Morty and Summer, that he does, in fact, care deeply for his grandchildren, even though it doesn't always seem like it. A Wrinkle in Time showed Rick crying as he watched footage of Morty growing up, and even giving his life for his grandson, even though he subsequently survived. Rick intended to reset Summer and Morty's thoughts so they wouldn't have to live with the trauma, which he eventually accomplished by the end of the episode, despite the fact that the first episode of Rick and Morty Season 8 exposed some of his worst shortcomings. Although he occasionally goes too far, Rick is typically able to see this and always makes an effort to put things right, demonstrating that he genuinely cares about his grandchildren and Rick and Morty.